To the public, Destiny's Child was a girl group representing sisterhood and harmony, but beneath the surface lay a much darker reality. The group was never designed for collective success. It was a controlled environment created to manufacture consensus, to make the audience comfortable with one voice, one face, and one name only, an incubator for a solo star already in development. It was Destiny's Child after all, not Destiny's Children. From day one, the group wasn't structured around equality. It was structured around inevitability. The architect was Matthew Knowles, and the child of destiny? Well, her name was Beyonce. In 1998, Destiny's Child hit the music scene. Cool, young and fresh, they entered at a time where R&B was crossing over. However, in an era dominated by girl power and equity, from the Spice Girls to TLC, Destiny's Child stood out. There was just one lead, a lead in every sense of the word, dominating not only the group's sonic landscape, but its entire infrastructure, Beyonce. Meanwhile, Kelly Rowland, LaToya Luckett and Latavia Robertson functioned largely as texture. They weren't there to carry songs, they were there to amplify the star. Their debut album is often remembered as a modest introduction, but right from the start the imbalance is unmistakable. Sure, Kelly gets a verse or two, including on the project's second single, With Me, but it's Beyonce who's centred as the emotional and melodic anchor. By the time the second album, The Writings on the Wall, exploded in 1999, the cracks weren't just visible, they were audible. The album broke Destiny's Child globally, but it was also an example of systematic sidelining. With the exception of lead single Bills, 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 where Kelly briefly takes the pre-chorus, every major single places Beyonce firmly front and centre. Yes, Kelly, and Latavia to a much lesser extent, have blink and you miss it lead moments on the album, most notably on tracks Now That She's Gone and Sweet 16. But it's Beyonce's name plastered on the wall. In fact, LaToya doesn't sing lead on a single released track, not one. With the exception of a few harmonies, she's barely heard. Beyonce would later describe LaToya as tone deaf in the press, though her solo records would tell a different story. The issue wasn't talent, it was presentation.
Bugaboo they didn't sing on at all. They were in the video.
Okay.
Actually on 9 of the songs on the album they did not sing on. So it was no different. Kelly and I were the only ones that sang in the studio, not by choice. But so it was no different. And the amount they sang on Say My Name was so small, if it was taken off, you would not know the difference between the one song and the other one.
From here, then there's the album track If You Leave, a collaboration with boy band Next. According to its lead singer, RL, Kelly confided in him about her frustration at not being given the opportunity to shine vocally. So he suggested to Matthew that Kelly take the lead on the track. The idea was arbitrarily rejected. Beyonce retained the lead vocals while Kelly was relegated to background flourishes woven throughout the verses.
Me and Kelly were really close. If you look on the second album, she's like, calls me her big brother. It was really cool. And she had told me that she really wanted to shine. And she didn't feel like she had the platform to do that. And I was like, okay. So we tell Matthew. Matthew's like, you sure? I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm like, wait a minute, don't you manage all of them? How you gonna say that's not a good idea?
The lineup has just been quietly cut in half and repopulated with 2 new singers. This has prompted a big lawsuit by the 2 booted ex-members against the group and its manager, who happens to be the father of lead singer Beyonce Knowles.
They seem to feel that they could continue on as part of the group and yet under their own management.
LaToya and I, we never quit the group. Never quit. We never quit. Never left. Never even said anything about quitting the group.
They were very, very aware of everything before it was done.
We simply wanted to disaffirm our personal management agreement with our manager.
That's ludicrous. Ludicrous.
From Illinois. What's up, everybody? I'm Farrah. I'm from LA, and I'm also 19.
Even before the dust had settled on the controversial exit of LaToya and Latavia, Barra Franklin was brought in as one of their replacements, only to leave the group 5 months later. The reasons were only too familiar: tensions over favouritism and unfair treatment versus work ethic and commitment.
I felt like I was losing my identity and I was not being treated as you would personally want someone treating your daughter.
Farrah just decided it was all too much for her. The schedule was all too much.
He was like, I don't give a what you just did. You better have your ass on that plane or you'll get replaced. As long as we have Beyonce, there's gonna be a Destiny's Child.
As long as it was Beyonce and Kelly doing the singing, the belief of all of us is that it would make a major difference, and sure enough, it didn't.
Farrah's departure left Michelle Williams as the sole remaining new member, and with that, Destiny's Child was once again represented to the public.
All of the bad seeds are now out of Destiny's Child. We've had changes in the group, and we finally found the recipe that is perfect.
Quickly, the 2001 Survivor era was launched, accompanied by an interesting piece of PR revisionism. Beyonce took interviews to frame this new trio as a turning point, claiming that for the first time, all members could actually sing lead now.
I made sure everybody sang lead on every song.
We're vocally stronger than we've ever been. The group has improved so much. We sing a lot better. Everybody gets to sing lead now because everybody can sing lead. So
Now we're vocally stronger than we've ever been.
Okay.
And now every single one of us can sing, which has never been the case.
Whoa.
It was a not so thinly veiled insult to the girls who had been ousted, but it also exposed a glaring logic gap. If Kelly had always been a capable vocalist, why had she been kept in the shadows for years? And what's more, what did everyone singing lead actually mean in practice? Beyonce called it equality. The reality said otherwise. She continued to take the most prominent vocal parts while Kelly and Michelle shared the remaining leads. Michelle in particular was frequently relegated to bridges or brief supporting moments. Even on singles Bootylicious, cited as Kelly-led, and Emotion, which Kelly opens, it's Beyonce's vocal flourishes and aggressive ad-libs that effectively colonise the song's identity. Even more striking are tracks like Brown Eyes and Independent Woman Part 2, which, like Jumpin Jumpin, are Beyonce solo songs presented at Destiny's Child recordings. The group exists here in name and image, but not in sound. Beyond vocals, Survivor also marks a decisive shift in creative control. Beyonce is credited as a writer and co-producer on just about every track, while Kelly and Michelle are absent from songwriting and production credits entirely.
Actually, I got the opportunity to write and produce in every song on the album. Every single song on the album Beyonce wrote and produced.
This is especially striking given Kelly's earlier contributions, most notably on the Writings on the Wall, where she co-wrote 10 songs. The imbalance wasn't subtle. In fact, during the Survivor promotional campaign, Beyonce's role as writer and producer was front and centre, presented as if she had crafted every note herself.
I got the opportunity of writing and producing actually every song on the album.
But, behind the scenes, questions were brewing. Producers would later speak out, and lawsuits would follow. On stage, the imbalance was impossible to miss. Beyonce owned the spotlight, strutting, ad-libbing and working the crowd, while Kelly and Michelle were reduced to sidelined figures in the background, trapped in formation lip-syncing to studio vocals. Every move reinforced the narrative. This was Beyonce's show, and the others were there in name only. The contrast was stark, and the story didn't stay on stage. It spilled into tabloids, feeding a growing frenzy over who really held the power in Destiny's Child.
It's clear that the group is Beyonce and the girls, so why don't you just go solo? No disrespect to the other girls, but we see how things are shaping up. You guys are on TV, the camera stays on you. You get the hottest Dior, they get your leftovers, and, that's a compliment to you. Why don't you just go solo?
Well, I don't think that the group is Beyonce and the girls, and I definitely don't get the hottest lips, and the cameras definitely don't stay on me.
Oh, come on.
Look at the other two when you got Beyonce.
Even the way they were referenced was engineered to elevate just one person. Calendria Trene Rowland was simply Kelly, and Tanitra Michelle Williams went by Michelle, while Beyonce's rare first name remained untouched, instantly more distinctive. What's more, according to Farrah, she, Kelly and Michelle were encouraged to tan, while Beyonce, the group's lightest skinned member, was not, creating a subtle visual hierarchy within an industry rife with colorism.
I mean, I did have to tan a lot.
Tan a lot. Because they wanted Beyonce to be the lightest one?
I mean, Michelle, I, and Kelly tanned.
Wow. And Beyonce wouldn't tan?
Not unless we were at a beach.
Something Matthew has since acknowledged aided her success. What's interesting is that Kelly was the one who initially saw the most immediate success during their solo hiatus. Her collaboration with Nelly, Dilemma, became a massive global hit, staying at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 10 weeks and winning a Grammy. By contrast, Beyonce's first solo offering, Work It Out, failed to chart on Billboard's main chart. Yet, when it came to the release of their final studio album Destiny Fulfilled, balance had shifted permanently. By this time, Beyonce had launched her solo career, racking up 5 Grammys and asserting a global takeover, cementing herself as one of the biggest stars in the world. Matthew would later insist that all 3 women had found equal success in their respective solo lanes. And while it is true that Kelly achieved a UK #1 album with Simply Deep, selling 2 million copies globally, and Michelle found success in gospel music, selling around 500,000 copies of her debut, the disparity was undeniable. Beyonce's debut sold over 11 million copies worldwide and produced era-defining hits like Crazy in Love. Even a glance at the 3 debut solo album credits reinforces this imbalance. Beyonce worked with top-tier producers like Scott Storch and Missy Elliott, to name a few, while Kelly and Michelle's projects were comparatively modest. Clearly, Beyonce had become bigger than the group, and Destiny Fulfilled felt less like a creative union and more like a contractual obligation. While a solid album, it lacked the spark and innovation of the group's earlier work. Nearly every song followed the same formula. Beyonce on the first verse and chorus, Kelly on the second verse, Michelle on the bridge, with Beyonce ad-libbing throughout. While the liner notes suggested a collaborative effort by crediting all 3 as writers, the power remained vertical. Beyonce claimed a production credit on every single track, a strategic move that ensured she remained the intellectual owner of the group's final breath. But it's the song's hooks that reveal the true hierarchy. In a vocal group, the chorus is supposed to be the blend, the moment where multiple souls become one. On Destiny Fulfilled, that blend is the digital ghost. On almost every chorus, you aren't actually hearing a trio. You're hearing Beyonce layered over Beyonce, stacked multiple times to create the illusion of a group harmony. Kelly and Michelle aren't just low in the mix. They're frequently absent from these sections.
Can you keep up, baby boy? Let me lose my breath. Let me cater to you, cause baby, this is your day. You're not here. I sleep in your t-shirt. Is she the reason you don't call like you used to? Yeah. You don't have to be hiding. I'm doing it, love. I'm finally giving it up. You don't have no business in this. Here's your papers, baby. You are dismissed.
The album performed well, but it didn't reach the heights of The Writings on the Wall or Survivor. And it didn't need to. By that point, Beyonce no longer needed Destiny's Child. Destiny was truly fulfilled, at least for one member.
2 of the girls who left the group in a controversy claimed that there was favoritism, that Beyonce was favored. Given that she is rising now as a star, when you look back, were they in some ways right?
Fully fledged solo star, Beyonce's dominance was obvious. But the question had now changed. From who commanded the spotlight to who held the pen? Who was truly crafting the music? Once the public accepted Beyonce as a star, the next step was building the legend. In pop music, vocals create stars, but credits create credibility. Being seen as a singer is one thing. Being seen as a writer, a creative architect, and a visionary is something else entirely. But this is where Beyonce's myth-making enters its most contested territory. At the heart of the issue lies terminology, specifically the conflation of vocal production with music production. Beyonce has never publicly demonstrated evidence of producing songs in the traditional sense. She does not create beats, program drums, compose chord progressions, or engineer tracks. What she does do, by nearly all reliable accounts, is vocal produce, arranging harmonies, refining melodies, directing phrasing, shaping emotional delivery, and guiding background vocals. This is a legitimate and valuable creative role, Many great singers, from Mariah to Janet, have long been praised for it. However, vocal production is not synonymous with songwriting or track production. And yet, Beyoncé's credits increasingly suggested exactly that. This distinction is not semantic, it's financial and reputational. Writing and production credits determine publishing revenue, award eligibility, and long-term artistic legacy. It is within songwriting specifically, however, that the controversies become more pronounced and most revealing. From Survivor onward, Beyoncé's name began appearing first in writing and production credits with striking consistency. And in the music industry, order matters. The first listed writer is widely perceived as the primary author, even when publishing splits suggest otherwise. Yet a closer examination of how those credits were earned reveals a pattern that has followed her entire career. A widening gap between public narrative and documented contribution. Take Irreplaceable, one of Beyoncé's defining hits. Ne-Yo has repeatedly confirmed that he wrote the song's lyrics and core structure in full.
How much is Irreplaceable? How much of that is your opinion, Ne-Yo?
I wrote all the lyrics. She helped put a lot of the melodies and harmonies together.
Oh, but lyrically, damn, Ne-Yo.
Yeah.
His demo is virtually identical to the released version.
You must not know about me. You must not know about me. I could have another you.
Beyoncé's contributions, by his own admission, were vocal harmonies, melodic embellishments, and stylistic refinements.
Are there times that you write songs for people and they want to take credit for it and act like you didn't write it because they want to make it seem like I did this?
That's happened before.
Are you talking about Beyonce, Angela Yee over there?
These are meaningful contributions, but they are not authorship of the song itself. Despite this, Beyoncé publicly referred to Irreplaceable as something she wrote for women.
I wrote this for all of the women out there.
A phrase that subtly but powerfully reframed the song as an expression of her personal authorship rather than collaboration. When Ne-Yo pushed back against this framing, he faced immediate backlash from her fans. His tone soon softened. Subsequent interviews emphasized Beyoncé's input rather than his sole contribution.
With all the harmonies and extra stuff that she put in there. So yeah, I gave her writer's credit.
The pattern here is instructive. Collaborators clarify, face resistance, then retreat into vaguer language. The narrative remains intact. The same dynamic appears with Halo. Ryan Tedder has said that the song was largely complete before Beyoncé's involvement. Its lyrics, structure, and melody were already established. She did not substantially alter the core of the song. Yet, Halo was framed as a personal expression of Beyoncé's artistry. That perception persists not because the evidence supports it, but because repetition, through branding and silence, makes it stick. In reality, Beyoncé's contribution was limited. She replaced Ryan's bridge with a vocal ad-lib following the melody line. And earned 5% of the publishing and a writing credit.
When she went to cut the song, she took the bridge out and just did the opera part. And the craziest thing ever, since she added a word in the song, she added again.
Adding ad-libs phrasing is common for vocalists. It does not typically warrant equal authorship. But, in this case, it becomes part of a broader pattern where interpretation is reframed as creation. If I Were a Boy introduced another layer of controversy. The song was originally recorded and written by Beyoncé Jean, whose version predates Beyoncé's release.
If I were a boy, I think that I'd understand.
Beyoncé's recording followed the same structure, narrative, and melodic contours, yet she emerged as the song's dominant public author, not through writing credit, but through optics and control. Beyoncé Jean later learned her song would be released by Beyoncé without her knowledge, while Matthew aggressively pursued the publishing rights. Then, there's Drunken Love. The melody and flow were created by Future on a reference track. He wasn't even told his work was being used until the album dropped. He provided the blueprint, and Beyoncé took the building.
I did Drunken Love.
The actual Drunken Love.
I did the actual Drunken Love.
Did you get credit for that?
I did Drunken Love.
Is everything okay?
Yeah,
Was
everything okay.
Cleared and
everything
smoothed
okay.
out?
Now it's just I can't put my the Good Morning out because of the version of like it say this a picture. Well, the picture is the same melody as Drunken Love melody.
Even before her solo career, there were similar controversies. Producer Rob Fusari had stated that Bootylicious was nearly complete when it reached Destiny's Child. Beyonce reportedly suggested reworking it within the group's sound. That creative instinct is real. But according to Rob, Beyonce later positioned herself as the song's primary writer. When he confronted Matthew, he was told that audiences prefer to believe that their favourite artists write their own hits. In this model, truth was secondary to marketability. Behind many disputes in the music industry is a growing debate over how songwriting credits and publishing are allocated when superstar artists are involved. In early 2024, Grammy-nominated songwriter Tiffany Red publicly criticised Beyonce, among others, for what she described as power dynamics that disadvantage writers. Tiffany alleged that Beyonce often receives a significant share of publishing, sometimes reported around 15 to 30%, on songs she did not substantially write, a figure many in the industry would consider unusually high given the limited creative input. Critics link this to a common industry practice sometimes called write a word, take a third, where even minor contributions, a lyric change, a melodic suggestion, even a vocal idea can justify a large publishing share. While this is legally permissible under US songwriting rules, detractors argue that when the artist is the marquee name, collaborators feel pressured to agree, bound by NDAs that prevent them from ever explaining the context publicly.
I talked to somebody yesterday, somebody's a manager of somebody who is a writer and producer on Renaissance, okay? The record is one of y'all faves. The song was written 6 years before it got to Beyonce. She got 25% of the song. That's wage theft. That's what that is. That is the power dynamic. That's the gun.
As Tiffany has said, this isn't about illegality. It's about leverage. Songwriters often accept these splits because a Beyonce credit can advance a career, even if it means surrendering a share they would never otherwise give up. And it's not just the lyrics, it's sounds. Critics have long pointed out that the Rich Harrison-produced Crazy in Love echoed go-go elements that Amory had been cultivating around the same time through her own work with Rich. However, while Amory and Rich were pioneering this rhythmic fusion, it was Beyonce, backed by a massive label investment and exposure, who received global recognition for bringing it to the forefront of pop music.
Now, you use the same producer as Beyonce Crazy in Love, and I hear the similarities.
It's the go-go. But see, I had the go-go in the last album.
Because one thing came out first, right?
No, it didn't, actually. It didn't
Was
come
it
out
done
first.
first?
No, it was. I mean, it probably was created already. The way Rich.
Because that's one of the stories that's floating out there.
Another flashpoint centers not on who wrote a song, but on who is credited when existing music is referenced or repurposed. In 2022, Beyonce's Renaissance album sparked intense discussion when an interpolation of Khalees's song Milkshake appeared in the track Energy. Khalees reacted publicly, calling the inclusion theft, and expressing that she had found out about the usage only when the album had been released, not through any direct communication from Beyonce's team.
Collaboration between B and Khalees. No, it's not a collaboration. It's called thievery, because the collaboration, the definition of collaboration, it means that we are working together. There's no working together if you are not even checking to see if everything's cool.
The interpolation, essentially a re-recorded musical element, was legally cleared because the actual songwriters, the Neptunes, were credited, but Khalees herself was not. After the public backlash, Beyonce's team removed the interpolated section from the track, underscoring how credit decisions can shift post-release in response to any type of public pressure, even if they were legally compliant.
My real beef is not only with Beyonce, because at the end of the day, she's copied me before, she's done stuff before. I'd be happy too if I was stealing all kinds of folks' publishing and rights to songs.
There are many other examples, including Bow Down, Smash Into You, but to name a few. The issue reached a rare institutional reckoning with Listen from Dreamgirls. Beyonce was credited as a songwriter. But when the Academy applied its long-standing 3-writer eligibility rule, her name was removed from the Oscar nomination. This wasn't symbolic or political, it was procedural. Among the credited writers, her contribution was judged insufficient to meet the Academy's threshold. For an artist whose brand was increasingly tied to authorship, the ruling was quietly significant and just as quietly forgotten. By this point, industry figures began speaking more openly, though often indirectly. Frank Ocean remarked that artists frequently pressure writers for credit without contributing meaningfully, adding pointedly that writers rarely refuse Beyonce. The implication was clear: power distorts consent. Linda Perry was more blunt, stating that changing a word does not constitute songwriting, and that some artists leverage their influence simply because they can.
The reason why people who work for Beyonce don't talk is because they're all on NDAs. Because that's also how she works. She silences people so that nobody can speak. For the last almost 4 years now, I have had so many writers come to me about her specifically.
Pop history is filled with vocalists who interpret songs without claiming to have written them. Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, Elvis Presley. None suffered for it. Beyonce's difference lies not in her talent, but in the system built around her. A system that prioritizes credibility over authenticity and discourages scrutiny. And the same pattern doesn't stop at the music. It continues with the visuals. Beyonce doesn't just perform, she absorbs. Ideas, movements, visuals, everything flows into her orbit, and often the original creators vanish. In pop today, images travel further than sound. Vocals and credits build the legend, visuals amplify it. Her signature visual style is a product of both her own creativity and her careful curation of influences, blending the avant-garde, underground, and marginalised artists into something distinctly Beyonce, polished for a global audience that rarely knows the source. And we have evidence of this. Run the World Girls at the 2011 Billboard Awards mirrored Italian artist Lorella Cuccarini almost frame for frame. There's the car-smashing scene in the Hold Up video, which closely recreates Swiss artist Pipolotti Rist's 1997 installation. There's also the choreography of Single Ladies, which draws heavily from the Bob Fosse 1969 routine Mexican Breakfast. And her countdown video copies a dance sequence from Belgian choreographer Anna Teresa de Keursmaker.
A Belgian choreographer says the singer lifted steps from two of her dances. This is not the first time Beyonce's routines have, been questioned.
Beyonce has been accused of incorporating others' moves into her routines before, including Bob Fosse's in her Put a Ring on It video. This year, her Billboard Music Awards performance was similar to this Italian pop star. Beyonce said she was inspired by the singer.
This is essentially the black hole effect. When a visual or choreographic idea enters Beyonce's orbit, it becomes the Beyonce move. The roots vanish, the spectacle dominates, interviews are banned, criticism is discouraged, access is restricted, credit and control are centralised, inspiration becomes a monopoly. When amplification drowns out the original creators entirely, it stops being inspiration and becomes a tool for replacement. The creators remain in the shadows, Beyonce takes the credit and the legacy. By the time the authorship narrative is settled, another pillar of the mythology rises: vocal supremacy. We're told she is the greatest live performer of her generation, an athlete who runs in heels for 2 hours and never misses a note. That claim doesn't always survive a forensic look. While Beyonce is undeniably an incredible performer, the image of raw, unassisted live excellence is often a construction. It's built on a specific industry strategy, the pre-recorded live vocal. In modern pop, live rarely means what we think it does. Most major artists use a mix of selected microphones and backing tracks. But while artists like Britney or Mariah are crucified for lip syncing, Beyonce is routinely exempt from scrutiny. Why? Because her team have mastered the art of the perfect simulation. She doesn't lip sync to the studio version. She records a separate version specifically for the stage, intentionally adding heavy breaths, vocal grit, and strained notes to mimic the physical exertion of the dance. It sounds real, it feels raw, but it's perfectly static. Even some of her most renowned performances, like Deja Vu at the BET Awards and Love on Top at the 2011 VMAs, feature vocals that remain sonically identical regardless of movement or breath demand. Human voices fluctuate, playback does not. This isn't a new strategy, it's just a more polished one. You just have to look back at her first solo outing, the Dangerously in Love tour, to see the blueprint. Back then, the deception was far less sophisticated. She would often simply lip-sync to the original studio vocals, a move that was much easier for the trained ear to catch. We saw the mask slip during the 2013 presidential inauguration. She lip-synced the national anthem, later admitting she didn't want to take a risk.
Due to the weather, due to the delay, due to no proper sound check, I did not feel comfortable taking a risk. So I decided to sing along with my pre-recorded track, which is very common in the music industry.
And that's the key word, risk. In Beyonce's world, variables threaten perfection, so they're eliminated.
And I will absolutely be singing live. This is what I was born to do.
Sometimes reality leaks through, like during the Grammy performance of Drunken Love, where she pulls the microphone away too early, yet the vocals continue at full volume. It's a split-second error that reveals the machinery behind the magic. This doesn't suggest an inability to sing. Far from it, Beyoncé is an amazingly gifted vocalist. Rather, it reinforces a recurring theme. Risk is minimised at all costs. When Janet or Madonna use playback, it's framed as laziness. When Beyoncé does it, it's invisible, protected by the myth of effortlessness. We're desperate to believe she's superhuman, so we ignore the simulation. Her performances aren't designed for spontaneity. They're designed for precision. She isn't singing for her life. She's performing a flawless, repeatable brand. Which leads us to the final and perhaps most revealing question. How is a narrative this carefully constructed sustained? And why do we continue to accept it? If the vocals, the credits, and the visuals are the pillars of the Beyoncé myth, then the system is the fortress that makes it untouchable. It's a closed-loop architecture designed to ensure that the truth never reaches the surface. It started as a family business, an unusually closed system.
Matthew Knowles and Beyonce, that's the root, that's the tree. Everything else is a branch or a leaf.
Matthew Knowles controlled the business side with military precision. Tina Knowles shaped the visual identity. Solange, just a teen at the time, worked behind the scenes as a dancer, alongside a host of other family members involved in supporting roles.
You have the whole family on road with you. It's kind of hard because you have a mother who is a hairstylist and also the clothing stylist.
Right.
You have a father who's the manager. You have her other cousin who was our attorney. You also have her other cousin who was our road manager. And you have her other cousin who was our road manager's assistant. And you have her sister Solange who was a background dancer.
Right.
This insular approach meant decisions, from vocal allocation to marketing strategy, stayed within the family sphere. Outsiders had limited influence. Dissent could be managed or suppressed. It also created an ecosystem designed to elevate Beyoncé above all peers, internal and external. But as the brand outgrew the family, it moved into the highest echelons of industry leverage. This is where the Beyoncé tax became institutionalized. Think about the sheer weight of the machinery. The legal gag, NDAs are the bricks of this fortress. Almost everyone who touches the Beyoncé project is legally sworn to silence. You can't talk about who actually wrote the hook. You can't talk about the playback tracks. To speak is to be blacklisted. Then there's the media complicity. Major networks and magazines don't just cover Beyoncé. They audition for her. They repeat her promotional narratives because they know that access is a privilege that can be revoked in a heartbeat. And then finally, the fanatic guard. The Beehive isn't just a fan base, it's a decentralised PR wing that treats objective scrutiny as a hate crime. The result is a self-sustaining feedback loop. Beyoncé is credited as the auteur because the system makes it impossible to credit anyone else. This isn't just a career, it's a calculated erasure. The scandal isn't that Beyoncé isn't talented. She is, massively. The scandal is that her talent has been used as a shield to justify a monopoly on credit. She has become a vessel of excellence that absorbs the labour of hundreds of unnamed creatives, repackaging their sweat and ideas as her own singular vision. We're told she's a goddess. We're told she's superhuman. But as we've seen behind the curtain, she's something far more grounded and far more dangerous. She's the ultimate product of narrative engineering. Beyoncé didn't just win the game of pop music. She built the stadium, hired the refs, and made sure she was the only one allowed to hold the trophy. The myth survives because we're desperate to believe in it. We want to believe in the 1 in a billion genius. But in the cold light of day, the Queen is a construction. A blend of high-level talent, ruthless strategy, and a system of silence that ensures the contributors stay in the shadows, while one woman stands in the light.